Hello and welcome to week 7 of the App Collective Mastermind. This week we discuss my lead magnet, which has finally been released, Nick's apps are on the move, and we both discuss adapting for iPhone 10. So how are you doing?
Doing good. Just been getting back into kind of the swing of things still after the onslaught and admin overload that 7 and 7 provides. So I noticed you were doing a whole lot of activity in Trello this past day. I have been very absent in Trello, so I was looking in the last hour and going, wow, I need to update all of my tasks basically.
Yeah, well, I was just going through them to update them for today. So there was a bunch that I'd done ages ago, and then a bunch that I've updated today. And
Nice.
most of the activity was making new cards, to be honest. So it looks
Makes
more
sense.
impressive than it probably is. Yeah. So
Awesome.
so it's been a few weeks, and obviously 7 and 7 has been the main reason for the delay, but I think, speaking for myself anyway, totally worth it. Like, I feel very inspired by everything that happened at 7 and 7, even though it's not really very app focused, and we were probably the only app people there.
Yeah, we probably were. I mean, one day maybe we can hope for a Nomad indie app developer meetup.
Yeah. Oh well, I didn't mean to. Yeah, it's not that there was a problem that we were the only people there. It was just like I feel inspired for all the app work, even though there was
Yeah.
no app people there.
No, I know what you mean. Like, even though there was no explicit conversation around app development, it's still like so many ideas got generated just being around people that you feel reinvigorated to do all these new things.
Exactly. Cool.
Yeah, and I actually feel like to just so in case Latoya ever listens to our very long mastermind, she is definitely an app developer. She calls herself an engineer. Fair. So maybe in a future conference, like the three of us could sit down and nerd out about something. If we're not like busy doing a million other things.
Yeah, that would be good actually. She had to dash off real quick this time, didn't she? So
Yeah, she makes you and me look like we're practically standing still. So makes sense.
well, that was one of the things that I liked about her. So, or that she had a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a very appealing energy.
Yeah, I had one amazing half conversation with her over coffee about Rails and JSON APIs, and that was it.
Right, nice. Cool. Well, without further ado, should we get into the board?
Yes, let's get into the big board. Let's see. So what do we normally do? We normally go one by one, right?
Yeah, so we alternate projects. So we got at the top of the project list is build an iPhone game.
Yes. Okay. So you and I have talked about this a tiny bit offline, and I've really thought about this. Like, so we're halfway in or 60% into our little mastermind series, depending on how we want to consider the last 2 weeks. And I think it's pretty obvious to me that like if I continue trying to go towards a target of building like a full-fledged iPhone game, I'm probably going to fall short and be disappointed in myself. And mentioning all of those amazing ideas from 7 and 7 and afterwards, I think I want to pivot this to a different app that is far more simple in scope and would still teach me a new skill that I don't know yet, that I could probably keep pretty close to the original deadline. So I would still maintain the same kind of tasks and ideas for it, but not, be trying to build this massive thing in a shorter amount of time.
Okay, that sounds sensible. So you're gonna keep the same rough idea, but rein in the scope massively. Is that?
That is basically exactly correct. Yes, I can even actually keep. So first, I'll update my target. So instead of an iPhone game, I'm going to build an iPhone app, and it was something suggested by one of my 7 and 7 attendees, and it's basically like a location-based alarm. So instead of setting an alarm for 10 a.m., say you're on like an overnight bus and you want to know when you're like 100 kilometers out from your destination, it'll let you know. And so it's something I could very easily MVP without a ton of bells and whistles, but it would also have me digging into like the geofencing and the different location based APIs and background execution where you're legally allowed to be in the background. And I haven't really massaged any of those in a while. So I think that'll be a really good learning experience, but will also be a very defined problem set to execute and implement.
Yeah, sure. And it's the kind of thing that I could imagine getting on Product Hunt or something like that. Like it's like solves a neat, easy to explain problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's also a very nomadic problem, and I actually think it does kind of pair quite nicely with your nomad tracker. That is
Mm,
kind of giving us data and analytics about where we're going as we move through the year, and this is more like help me wake up as I'm moving through those places.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's a good idea. And so, um, what questions do I want to know about this? So, um, yeah, I don't know. Some will come to me. Some will come to me.
No
So,
worries.
so what is your do you plan to kind of wireframe this stuff out, or what's your next action, I guess?
Yes. So, unlike a game, which obviously requires, its own set of dynamic assets, this is good old iOS UI. So, I already have a pretty solid mental image of what I want this to look like, and its feature set is more or less what I just said. So, I
Right.
think my task for this coming week is going to be to just do the sketch mockups. Like, I don't even think I need to do wireframes because it's going to be really simple. I'm imagining something that's more or less like you open it up, you pick a location, you pick a distance from said location based on your current location, and you hit
Mm,
go. And
yeah.
when you get close to it, it'll push notification that you're there. And, app MVP version 1.0 complete.
Sweet. That sounds good. So the goal for this week is the mock-ups of those handful of screens. Um,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
because I don't imagine, I mean, like there's the one screen I just described, but then, I mean, I wouldn't really imagine maybe more than three. And that's including if there's any kind of settings or, an about screen or anything like that. So I think it should be pretty easy, pretty clear to mock up. And the mock ups would demonstrate all of the functionality, which I always kind of like. Like I know it can be easier to do user stories sometimes, but sometimes I feel like if you can kind of demonstrate visually everything you want your app to do, I kind of like the power of that because, it's very satisfying to like pull together a sketch mockup.
Yeah, and I think the stories are more are particularly useful when you've got a huge list of features that you need to prioritize, and especially when you need agreement for multiple people. Whereas when you're aware of what it means to do particular things, so you're not going to start saying, "Oh, let's add machine learning to this," like, or other crazy scope things because you know
Right.
what's involved, and so just the mock-ups are not a bad idea, or they're a good
Exactly.
idea.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's my task. I don't think I'll probably have to retire. I have one or two other in progress tasks from the game, but I think more or less everything kind of works as is. Are you okay with me just tweaking the target, or should I delete that one and create a new one?
Uh, I just tweak it. So there's no kind of the only relationship between that and anything else is just the
Right.
labels, and
Perfect.
so just kill the other tasks and then change the target. Yeah, and then just use that label. I can't see. Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think that'll be good because I will still end this mastermind series with an app, only it will be one that's far more attainable. And I can see a lot of different ways to potentially evolve an app like that, a lot like Nomad Tracker, where you were setting out to create an app and it could go in 50 different ways in like 6 months.
Mm,
And like the same thing with this. Like I could build it for that person who suggested it at the 7 and 7 Nomad House, and then afterwards I could be like, okay, what's next? And could be anything.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Awesome.
sounds like a good plan.
Okay, cool. So if we don't have any other questions or anything on that, shall I jump to your first target?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, perfect. Your first one is to get 5,000 mailing list subscribers within your Progress app.
Yeah, and so my task for last week, or my two tasks were,
Yeah.
well, basically I'd done all of the stuff, the app technical stuff, but we were making like a lead magnet, as it's called, which is like basically a PDF document that was going to be
Right.
your prize for joining the mailing list, and that bit hadn't been finished. And so we finished all that off, and the app was released. I really love the slow release thing that Apple lets you do. I've said about this before, but I still love it, where you can say, release my app slowly over 7 days. And it kind of releases the updates to like 5% of people and then 20% and so on. And then it really ramps it
That
up.
is cool.
But it just makes me feel so much more happy when I'm doing releases. But anyway, so I did the release, I did it slowly like that, and it was all good. And so the thing was to monitor the thing. And so I was going through today and looking at the stats. I have been looking at the stats a little bit, but not much. And so
Sure.
it has been reasonably effective. I would say I'm happy with how it's gone, but it's not like ecstatic, but certainly happy. And so I haven't actually got a figure for how many have joined since I did the thing, or have I? No, but so the total subscribers is now up to about 750, and so
Nice.
and it's going up about 120 a week now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is pretty good. And so if it stays at this rate, then by the end of the mastermind, I will be up to about 1,200 subscribers. So not the 5,000 target, but still like a significant, thing that's going to keep growing. Uh,
Absolutely. Do you know before you did this slow rollout what the average number of signups per week was?
it's well, not off the top of my head. It was about, I think after I did this change we talked about before, where I asked people at the end of the survey, it was about
Right.
one a day or two a day.
Okay.
Like it was in that order of magnitude, like 10 a week or less, or thereabouts.
Okay.
And so now it's more like 10 or 20 a day.
That's
Um,
substantial. I mean, that means like,
yeah,
okay, yes, maybe you're not going to hit 5,000 at the end of this mastermind, but if you keep even in the ballpark of that increase, like you will definitely get there.
yeah, exactly. And then kind of related to that was that I had the three screens. So part of the plan was to A/B test this to see what would do best between the three designs that I did. And so if I can, what I'll do is share my screen just to give a bit of context.
Yeah, do it.
Screen with Trello. So I'll just go through them quickly. So these
Yep.
were the three screens that I had. So this is woman from the side,
Right.
woman smiling, as I call it, and then no woman is
Right.
what this screen is. So
Nothing but
but
blue.
for funsies, I don't know whether you've cheated and looked in the Trello and seen what the results are, but which do you think would be the most successful, or pick
I
what order
try
do you
I
think?
try not I try not to cheat because where's the fun?
Sure.
So my gut would be the side only because it looks the most fitnessy with the
Okay.
shoes and the measuring. Like it seems like the one where like the person has been working out and they're seeing what their body measurements are, and the others don't kind of paint the picture quite as much. So that would be my guess.
Right. Okay. Well, sadly, there are no prizes, but if there were, you would have won one. So, yeah,
Woo!
the side image did the best. So the results are, no, not that one here. So the
Wow.
the woman on the side converted at 13%. The woman at the smile, which would have been the one that I would have picked, just because I kind of thought that the impact of a smile is
Sure.
is strong, that would have been my guess, but that came in last, at more than half as effective as the side one. And then she did, so the smile did worse than no person at all,
Right.
just blue. So yeah, so that was how that went. And then So my plan now for this is to basically leave the woman from the side, but then add another couple of variations. So
Sure.
I can't remember whether it was this week or last week, but I had a goal to come up with some other mock-ups of different
Right.
things, and I've done that. Sadly, they are all more women. Apart, probably this one may or may not be a woman. Finding fitness pictures of men is hard, and with the other ones, we did the actual measurements we had done ourselves. We paid someone on
Right.
Fiverr to do it, so we
Right.
could do that again if we could find a male fitness model.
I do think that would be cool just from a equal representation standpoint, since like, if you go on like Groupon these days, it's literally all just like women's bellies for like losing weight or like tummy tucks or I don't even know what
Yeah,
else.
I mean, it would be I don't know whether we've got enough people, but it would be an interesting thing to try see whether women preferred the image of the men or vice versa. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, there you go. At the moment, I've got these three, and so I'll probably drop out the two worst performing ones and slot these ones in, the top two ones in, or maybe I'll do the running one and I don't know.
Right.
Two,
If I
two of
had to, are
yeah,
those
sorry, go on.
three that you just showed on your screen, mock-up images, or are those the images you're actually going to try?
These would be what I would try. So they are mock-ups, but they're what I'm gonna.
Right. So
I think.
my premonition gut then is the one we're currently looking at, where the woman looks like she's doing the high kicks. I feel
Yeah,
like that's going to be the most effective.
yeah, I feel that as well. So because that just looks like the most. That looks like it's something out of a Nike advert or something, right? It just looks really proper.
Exactly. Like she
Uh,
looks hella fit.
yeah. Whereas this woman, I don't know, it's fine. I like this one the best from a technical perspective because it's all black, and so
Right.
that makes it easy to do for different. I can just have her, and then she can scale to different aspect ratios better than
Right.
other images. Although maybe not. Maybe this one will be fine. So probably I will do this one and this one just first, just because this one's the most different, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and we're coming into winter,
That's
so
true. And honestly,
maybe
who knows? Like maybe a lot of people want to see someone with a winter hat on.
you never know. You never know. So, and the good thing is as well, it's just a test, so we'll see what
Right.
happens.
So is that what is next then to test these three after dropping
So
the smiley one and the no person one?
I think I'm going to stick to just testing three. So I'll leave. I think
Okay.
I'm going to leave this one for now. I don't know what you think, but I think this one is. I don't know. It's not that this one is probably stronger than the running one, but the running one
Probably.
is more different, and so it's like it's worth trying something completely different. I don't know. I don't know. And maybe I'll change my mind, but I'm only going to replace two of them anyway, and then maybe
That's
I'll
fair.
bring the other one in. I'll send that into the next race, as it were. Like,
Yeah. You know what you could do? Yeah. If you drop the smiling and the blue for the bottom two here, so the black background and then the most different runner, and then you
mhm.
just keep the one of those two that is the most effective. And then in the third trial, you have the two winners plus this one where the woman's like doing the high kicks. That would be really interesting because then that would probably be like the three strongest ones you have so far.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of feel like I want to put my strongest contender into bat first. Um, hmm.
Well, then if you wanted to do that, I'd put this one in.
Yeah, so I will. So I'll put this one and then one of the other two, and then
Okay.
the remaining one will go in last when one of those two or the other one is knocked out.
The one thing I would say is if you did the strongest one here, plus the runner with the hat, with the original image that's the strongest, they're all very similar stylistically. So it's like a refinement rather than a complete evolution. So you will still get good numbers, but if you were trying to like do drastically different results, you might want to include the one with the black background.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, that I'm sold. So we'll go with the top two for now because this one is drastically different uh,
Right.
in its image style. So yeah, we'll see what we get with those two.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a plan. Um, and then I had one other task on this, which was to research if I could follow stuff all the way through. Like, so if I could see if the person who chose the sideways image wound on to actually click through more and stuff like that.
Right.
My feeling is that I just can't be bothered to be brutally honest. Like, so I think I would have to set up a bunch of extra stuff in MailChimp. Like I would have to segment everything down in there.
Right.
And so
There is a potential alternative. You might be able to use Facebook Analytics, because I've done this where I've built, say, an ad, like an ad unit on a website. And if you click on the ad and download my app and then do an in-app purchase, I can actually track that entire funnel in Facebook. And so I wonder if you can do it the reverse way, like clicking on the ad in your app, Facebook can track, you can create an event to track that click. And then if you have like a Facebook tracking pixel somewhere down the line, then maybe in your MailChimp or in a campaign or on a website, you could kind of see where the person is.
Yeah, so the only, as far as I know, and I'm just doing a quick Google, the only analytics that MailChimp supports is Google Analytics.
Right.
And even then, I don't think that I can go Google Analytics. I think I can follow the chain out from MailChimp, but I can't follow the chain in, as far as I know. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's possible. Yeah, but
I mean, that's like the great mystery, right? Like you want to be able to like run an ad and see if someone actually did an in-app purchase, or you want to offer something in your app, and then completely outside of your app, you want to know, are you the same person that clicked this? Like, it'd be great to know.
Yeah, I mean, and the Facebook Analytics is something that I want to look at again, because I don't know, I've taken stuff out on kind of moral grounds. Like I feel conflicted.
Yeah.
But I think it's time to to change that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there, and I've really only scratched the surface of it. So it's like, whenever you're ready, I can always share what I know, which is not much, but it's definitely enough to like install it, see how events are tracked. It automatically tracks in-app purchases, installs, and launches for you. So like you can pretty easily get like a loose fingerprint, especially a footprint, especially if you did Facebook ads for your app.
Yeah, well, that would be the main reason to do it, would be to try the copycat ads, which you mentioned before, and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And just to see how much that will cost would be really interesting.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Cool.
Nice.
Right. So, and then the other task I've got for this week relating to that is to do iPhone 10 support. So
Nice.
I've got to do this for all of the apps, but it kind of ties in with that, because none of those screens work with iPhone 10, or at least they work, but they just don't look good.
Right. That's fair.
So yeah, and then I'm bolting on doing all my other apps for iPhone 10 support with that as well.
Nice.
And I've done most of it. Like, it hasn't been, it's as with all stuff, is where I've used Apple's things out of the box, it's been totally fine. Where I've tried to be clever, I've had to do a bit more work.
That's fair.
It's not been too bad. I actually quite like all the safe area stuff. It all makes quite good sense to me, and seems quite intuitive. I don't know whether you've looked at it at all.
I haven't yet, but I have a pretty good idea about how I want to kind of generically implement all my apps going forward to support the 10. And it'll be interesting. I'll kind of want to, once I get into it though, because I might change my mind when I'm actually coding it up, I want to maybe see how you did it and then compare and contrast, because I've really gotten in the habit of not using any kind of storyboards or anything. Like, I programmatically create all my interfaces these days, which means like I would need to programmatically modify it to work with the giant header and all that stuff.
And do you use auto layout for it, or do you use not auto layout?
I have typically resisted auto layout because I have been a perfectionist and I like to do pixel perfect layout for so many of my apps, even though I realize auto layout, if you set it up right from the very beginning, everything flows like wizardly magic.
Yeah, well, it will be, honestly, in that case, I have no idea how it's going to go. Like, it will be interesting to see. It may all just work, because it's the things where you need it is things like tab bars and nav bars, and it does all of that automatically anyway.
Right.
So it's like, if I'm on an iPhone 10, it automatically makes the tab bar much bigger and stuff like that. So
Mm.
I believe that will all work, but it'll be interesting to see. All my stuff is storyboards and auto layout, or when I've done it in code, I'm pretty much always use auto layout now. So
Right.
Yeah. So
Cool.
yeah, I also really want an iPhone 10 now after using it in the simulator. Like I didn't really want one before.
Oh
I did,
no.
but like
Oh,
they're just so expensive.
they're
But
so damn expensive.
once you start using the iPhone 10 simulator for a bit, then the old simulator just feels like it's like a crappy child's toy kind of
Ah,
simulator.
crap.
So,
It's like when you pop back to like the iPhone SE for like backwards compatibility, and it's got the stupid roundy corners, and you're like, what is this? This archaic mess.
yeah, exactly. That's what it feels like to me anyway. So the sooner I stop using that simulator, the better, really.
It's
Um,
fair. Get in, get out.
yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, so that is it for me for that one.
Great.
Um, your next project is the $10 a day in App Store profit. Tell me,
Yes.
tell me.
Okay, so this one is just fraught with updates and confusion. So when last we left off, I believe I had said I had noticed like a ridiculously large spike in the number of downloads for all of my apps across the board, but absolutely to the dollar, no change in revenue. So like if I was getting, say, 20 downloads a day per app and like $5 in revenue, all of a sudden I was getting 200 downloads a day and $5 in revenue. So
Mm,
that was 2.5, 3 weeks ago. Where we are today is actually far more interesting. So about 6, 7 days ago, that artificial spike completely disappeared. And I am now back into the I think roughly where I was before. I'd actually have to go into the analytics and compare, but instead of being triple digit downloads a day per app, it is now double digit downloads per day per app. Except my revenue has double or tripled depending on how you look at it for the past 2 to 3 weeks.
oh, nice. Well,
Yeah.
that's excellent.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's very interesting. So the big thing I can remember changing is right before we finished this last mastermind. I think I had said I was going to tweak out my search campaigns a little more. I had just released a couple title tweaks based on your feedback from, many masterminds ago. And so the only thing I can think of is, okay, that artificial spike ended due to who knows what. But now it's been enough time that like my apps have the changed titles, the optimized keyword data, the pages are updated for iOS 11. I don't have the videos in yet, but like everything but. And, I changed my search ad campaigns. Oh, and the other thing was about 2 weeks ago, my search ad campaigns ran out of money, like, the original number of dollars I set for them. So I went
right.
in, doubled the budget, and then increased the daily spend as well. And I think that's definitely having the effect. It's possible that just like those few extra ad impressions per day are really improving the conversion rate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. As, so is your profit still up in line with if your spend has gone up? So
That is what I've got to check because I think I've only gotten one receipt from Apple for search ads since I upped it all. So I'll have to see what the update was because I was honestly spending so little before. It was more just like keeping it alive, like 5 to 8 US per week. So even if
yeah.
it was, yeah, so like really, really, really small. But I think now it's probably more like 8 to 15 US per week. So we'll see. Like I think at the very worst, my hunch is that it's a 1 for 1. So if I put $5 more into the ad, I'm definitely getting 5 more in revenue. It'll just be really
Right.
interesting to see next week. Like, does this in-app purchase hit go up next week? Because another thing I had mentioned a long time ago was my travel tipping app has always had decent sales, but Tacora, my time app has always had really great downloads, really terrible in-app purchase conversion rates. And that has started to change. Now, instead of having like one every couple of days, I have like 2 or 3 in any viewpoint. And so I'm wondering, like, is that a fluke or is the extra money I allocated to the search ad mean that thing is now kind of like, it's not tripping over itself. It's actually generating good revenue, because that would actually then lead to a new experiment where I pump up the ad spend even more. Because I think we talked about this like in the first season of our podcast, where it's like, if you just put $1 in and get $1 out, that's not great. But if I put $1 in and get like $1.10 out, I could just massively ramp up the ad spend if it was, proportional, and then just make more money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So it's good to know those, to get to understand the numbers, basically.
Exactly. And I mean, honestly, I think at some point I might literally have to find, is there like a content marketer out there that fully understands like Apple search ads and app-based marketing? And I'd be like, look, here is some money. Please tell me what my apps are doing and how I should change it. Please and thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's maybe not a bad idea. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Okay, crazy out loud idea, which we can always edit
Do
out.
it.
What if we do that together as some kind of screencast type thing or something?
Ooh, like reviewing the search ads and stuff like that?
Yeah, so just go through the search ads and the analytics and just see what we can discover.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, I don't know if you want to share that with people or not. Like, I don't know. I think I don't know, to be useful, we'd have to think about how we could make it to be useful.
Yeah,
But
because
I
the
feel
one
like
thing
we
is
could do
like,
something that is useful with that.
yeah, because like it's definitely going to be a lot of, okay, click there. Okay, click there. Okay, let's look at these two keywords. Which do you think is better? Okay, let's check something else. So it could be something where maybe we do that, like we screen share and we check it all out, but then maybe we come to a series of conclusions that we can share. I don't know.
Yeah, or maybe we record the whole thing and then
Right.
massively edit it down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You do like a cartoonish fast forward, like
yeah, exactly. Well, that works as well. Like, that's really easy to do in iMovie. So
nice.
yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
Well,
okay, so bouncing back to the task itself or the target itself, I think what I want to do for the next week, one, I want to watch. Like, I want to see, okay, it's been changing. Is it going to go up more? Is it going to stay steady? Is it going to crater? Because seriously, over the past like 3 months, I've like watched my downloads go way up, way down. I've watched my in-app purchases go way up and way down, and only some of it is because of me. So I kind of want to control group it a little bit, but then also maybe if I in like 6 days say I'm still getting good results, maybe go in and bump the ad spends a little bit more and see if I see a similar increase, so we can start like testing the hypothesis about like $1 in, $1 out.
yeah, sure. Okay. So are you going to have any activity to do this week or?
So let's see. I'm just going to jot down a note for myself. So activity for this week would be, how about I chronicle or chart the kind of difference in the past few weeks, so that like not only the number of download shifts, but like now that the actual revenue seems to be getting better, because I'm not at that perfect $10 a day right now, but right now it's hovering more like somewhere from 3 to 7. But it's like I said, like, is it like that tomorrow? Is it like that in a week? I don't know. So I think maybe, like you said, it's no good if I don't actually go in, compare all the analytics and see how everything is doing. So I think I want to kind of chart that difference, see if I can make any like determinations or predictions. And then like I said, maybe at near the end of this next week, bump my ad spends to see if it starts changing anything.
One thing you could have a look at, I'm just going to see whether they do. I'm not sure whether they do. So what I was going to say was that App Figures is like a sort of like App Annie type thing that plugs in, that kind of hoovers up your iTunes Connect data.
Okay.
And they show an average per day, which is my favorite thing about them. So they say you select the last month and it says, okay, you're making this amount per day.
Right.
But I don't know whether they would take in your spend on advertising.
Right, because I just realized like the dream interface would be something that can pull iTunes Connect data, can pull Apple Search Ads data, and then if you also ran either Facebook ads or Google AdWords or whatever else, so it could be like, okay, here's how much revenue this app takes in, but you also spent this much on ads for it this week, and it can boil it down to your kind of like net plus or minus per day would be super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, App Annie definitely will do. So I don't think App Annie gives you the daily average, but you can definitely plug in your ad spend and you can plug in your income and you can plug in
Okay,
ad money as well. So App Annie
nice.
will give you all of that in a nice graph, and you can separate out between revenue and margin and stuff like that. So
Cool. Okay, well then, my task for this coming week for more App Store revenue will be kind of watch these recent changes, see if they keep changing or stabilize or go back down, bump my ad spend if it seems like it would make sense, and then check out App Annie and see if that sheds any new light on things.
yeah, absolutely, it's a good plan.
Perfect. All right, noted. All right, let's move on to your second target, which is the tip jar that you were originally going to add to World Time and has kind of gone through all its a bunch of iterations.
Yeah, so I can't even remember what we talked about last time, but I think for World Time, I will still have the tip jar and I still want to build this thing, but my kind of original way of fitting it into World Time, I don't think is going to happen anymore. That said,
Right.
this is still a useful thing to finish, especially because it's half done. So
Definitely.
my task for last time was to pull the prices from the App Store, so to show real prices, and it now
Right.
does that. And so I've
Can
got
I ask a quick technical question about that?
sure.
So, if I remember right, because I wanted to do this as well for one of my CTAs, you can know in like your local plist file that say it's going to be say 99 cents, right? But don't you have to like, isn't it something like you can hit the app store, get your list of products and actually get the price in the local currency and display it. But it means you wouldn't be able to display the ad or the CTA until that transaction is completed the first time when your app is running, right?
That's right. So what I've done at the moment is that it will load. Uh, is yeah. So when the tip jar pops up, it just says
Right.
it's got four buttons and it just says loading in all of them, and then
Okay.
as soon as the price loads, it shows the price. So
Gotcha.
one option that I've done in other places is to like make that call from like the app delegate or something like that
Uh-huh.
to pre-cache the prices. Um, but I
How has
haven't.
that worked out?
That has been fine. I think that's kind of my preferred way of doing it. But
Right,
well,
me too.
in principle, but the reason it's kind of boring technical reasons that I haven't done it that way this time is and so it may change because I prefer to be pragmatic. But what I want is to
Right.
make this thing a standalone component, and so I want it to be
Right.
like a few lines of code where it's like you've got a button in your main interface, and the button says, tip jar, and then you press
Right.
that, and then that's all that you need to launch
Right.
the tip jar. And the other thing is that I've used third-party libraries to interact with StoreKit before,
Mm,
which is not something that I want to do this time. And so that I mean that doesn't mean I couldn't put it in the app delegate, but
sure.
so basically for with those goals in mind, at the moment I'm loading it like that. And so what I could do is cache, which I'm not doing at the moment, is cache the prices.
Right.
Um, I don't know. I don't even know whether I think that's a good idea or
Yeah.
not. Because
See,
if
that's
the
the thing.
prices change, that's
I
probably
was always
worth
torn
not changing
about this.
the price.
Yeah. Because it seems like the only downside I always saw of not just doing it right at the moment is time, right? Like if you're showing an ad or a CTA or
Mm.
an action or a tip jar, you want someone to click right the fuck away. And if you have to wait that extra second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, you're less likely to get that click. But you also don't want to, what if you did it and something went weird and you didn't get the amount? Do you have a fallback number? And if you have a fallback, like, is it even going to work? Because if it failed, the source is probably unavailable in the first place.
Or if you have a fallback number and they tap before then it looks like you're scamming them, right? Because it might be that the price changes right after they click the button, or
Oh,
right as they click the button, and then they feel like you're cheating them, or doing something shifty.
damn. Yeah,
Um,
I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that would be a huge bad move.
but but I mean, that said, a standalone module could have something that you call in the app delegate that pre-caches the prices. So that might be a feature to add at the end, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for the moment,
Yeah, actually, you're right. That is a solution though. You could have a bit of the code that's like you could have like an init, right? In the app delegate, like fancy tip jar button, init, and it'll go and try to pre-cache. And if the CTA or the tip window doesn't get initiated until after that's been called, everything looks like magic.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, and
Cool.
so I think that would be a nice way to do it. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I could see that I would probably publish it before
Nice.
or maybe publish it before doing that. Would have to see. Guess it depend on if there was nothing else, if I was ready to release the app or not.
Right.
Um, yeah, and so this week the next step is to actually store. So one thing I do want to cache is the results of people actually making the in-app purchase. So I want to keep a localized
Right.
or a local copy of, like, you tipped $2, you tipped another $2, that's $4, and so on, and just keep that, and
Right.
so that when the tip jar shows, it can say, oh yeah, straight away, oh yeah, you spent $2, and
Yeah.
that information can be available outside of the tip jar as well. So that's my
A
goal.
question is
Hmm.
for consumable purchases like this, can you get the receipts for it? Like, can you, when you fire up the app, can you be like, oh yeah, here's all the things you bought? Or is because they're a consumable purchase, they don't work like that? Like you actually have to store that information in your own data structure.
Well, I don't. The honest answer is I don't know. So
Okay.
uh, um, I know, yeah, for consumer, and so my plan is to assume is not to do the receipt stuff, um,
Gotcha.
and then to store it in iCloud. So kind of once everything is stored in defaults, then
Right.
then I will plan to change it to use this. It says that there's something where you can fairly easily make your NS defaults be like iCloud user defaults. Um,
Sure.
and so that obviously adds some complexity, but that is my goal. And
But
then
yeah, I'd be interested to see how it works, though. That's definitely like an interesting way to approach the problem.
yeah, I'd have to check. As far as I remember, like pcalc, which I'm basically modeling all of this on, doesn't have
Yep.
a restore purchase button. Um,
Okay.
but if he does, he definitely is caching the values in iCloud.
Cool.
So yeah, so I'm just following the way I've assumed he's done it. Um, and then yeah, maybe in the future I would do receipt validation.
Nice.
Uh, but in theory, I shouldn't need it because it should just go to iCloud, and then
Right.
um, yeah, yeah,
Cool.
that is yeah, that's the plan. And so yeah, that's the goal for this week, is to basically get the purchases actually working. Um,
Perfect.
yeah, and show the total in the UI. That's the other target for this week.
Cool. Do you feel confident about that?
Yeah, I think so. Like the purchase stuff should be straightforward. Like that's, there's like a gajillion examples of code for that. And
Sure.
then it's just adding values up. So it should be fairly, it's one of those things where it should be trivial if
Right.
all goes well, but it may not go well, but even so, it's not hundreds of tasks. It's like a small thing to move forward.
Totally.
Yeah. So I think it should be fine.
Nice. Sounds
Um,
good.
yeah. Cool. Excellent. All right. So let's move on to your next target.
Do it.
Yeah. So your target was to get 20 patrons in Patreon.
Yes. So that one's actually been going really well. Since we last recorded a mastermind, we've gotten 4 new patrons. So
Ooh.
40% of the way towards the goal I wanted. So pretty happy about that.
Yeah, definitely.
So the only I'm a little torn right now because originally what I was doing moving forward was Kit had, given me a great strategy document, and there were ways that I could target people who would be likely to back, the App Collective on Patreon. And then, I was going to go and execute based on that. And now I'm almost wondering if I just want to go old school human engineering. Like, I talked to a million awesome people at 7 and 7. They all have different projects that, they want feedback on and support on and things like that. So if I talk to any of them, like, I'm trying to think, like, of the 50 people I probably mentioned an app I'm working on or a project or the App Collective itself, it's like, would it just be worth it to just kind of write a couple Facebook, Twitter posts, Instagram posts, tag the people in the relevant social networks and just be like, hey, here's that thing I was talking about, and see if people back it. Like, if that would be more effective than trying to do kind of a marketing campaign towards the wider internet,
I would think that, especially if people have expressed interest, then definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly in terms of getting to that goal, then I think that's a really good way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Cool.
certainly try it.
Yeah, because I feel like what I maybe missed the point on was when I first started the Patreon, I got a few friends and colleagues involved and stuff, but those were the people that are really close friends or really active or whatever. And I kind of just assumed to myself, oh, that's all there was to mine from my internal network. And I think that was actually really, really wrong. So instead it's yes, maybe this was what gets me to, gets us to 20 Patreon backers. But then when I want to go from 20 to 200, that's when you do the widespread marketing campaign and you have to get basically strangers involved. But I feel like I'm not yet at that point. I haven't quite, for lack of a better word, I have not milked my personal connections and the connections of those connections as much as I probably could at this point without being scammy.
Yeah, no, that makes. I mean, it's not a case of. Yeah, I think it's a case of thinking of it as what's easiest, right? So it
Right.
is. Yeah, it's easier. It will be easier to because those people know you, and that's a lot of what they're buying. So
Exactly. And I mean, that's actually that's most of the mission of the Patreon anyways. It's hey, do you know me? Do you want to support me in the things, I'm doing? Here's a way to do it. And if you care about, apps or courses or books or whatever, you can have a peek at those too.
yeah, yeah, I think it makes sense.
Nice.
So
All right then. Well, that's easy then. So yeah, my tax, I'll have to look. I forget what I had. I had a whole bunch of things where I was going to do a series of different funnels and based on Kit's strategy document and just kind of do what you were doing with your body measurement ads and just kind of see which ones were more effective. And I feel like I'm going to table all that because that's the kind of from 20 to 200 strategy. And yeah, I'm just going to do what we just said. I'm going to go on Facebook and Twitter and maybe Instagram and just interact with people who I've already been talking to. And if they've already expressed an interest in anything I've been doing, I will just post stuff, tag them, start a conversation. And yeah, if they join, awesome.
yeah, yeah, that's it. So sounds like a good plan. So is
Easy
there
peasy.
a particular? So is the task for this week? Is it kind of quantifiable, or do you see what I mean? How will we know
Yes.
whether that's done?
Yes. How about easy? Okay. The loosely quantifiable task will be just anyone I met or reconnected with at 7 and 7 or the Nomad House after 7 and 7 and, discussed any of my projects with, reach out and or tag them in App Collective specific content on the correct social network. So that's really not that hard. That basically means make 5 posts over the next week. So that'll be my metric. Make a couple of posts across all my networks over the next week that hits all of the people I've already had chats with. And so the next time we're recording, if I've succeeded, I will have basically just talked to all of them. They don't have to have backed me at that point. But if the conversation has continued, I will consider that task done.
I think that sounds spot on.
Nice. It's an easy one too, I guess, right? I can quantify everyone that was at 7 and 777 and at the Nomad House, it's, at least in terms of the people I talked with, like we're talking about, 90 people. So pretty easy.
Excellent. Yeah,
Cool.
sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, let us bounce to your final target, which is Nomad Tracker.
Yeah. So my task for last week was to add import location from photos, which you'll remember I'd already implemented on another app, and so
Yep.
I've done that, but I don't think I've pushed it out yet to the beta
Cool.
public. And what was this other task here? Research. Does the app send a terminating message when shutting for update test by? Okay, so this was just my kind of concern about
Right.
people who force close apps. When shutting for update. So I tested after an update, and what did I?
You did all sorts of interesting things where it was both like if the user force quit an app, if the user installed an app update, and I think you were even checking if like, what if like, my iPhone just auto updated itself and everything like that? Like what happens in all of those cases where it's not guaranteed to just be in the background? Like how will the tracking restart itself, right?
Yeah. So if the user force quits, then that's just tough shit, basically. Excuse my French.
Totally
Um,
fair.
but if the app updates, I found I could make a change that would allow that to work. And so I think for some
Mm.
reason I hadn't given the running in the background permission. I think because of the kind of occasional access doesn't seem to need that kind of the permission that you set in Xcode where you're
Yep.
setting the permissions. But it
Right.
turns out if you do set that, then it does work. Um,
Okay.
so uh, yeah,
Nice.
so that was really all that was. So that is all done. And then
Great.
while we were at 7 and 7, we had a meetup of people who were interested, and a bunch of people came, which was really nice. And I took a load of notes, which I have not done anything with yet, and that was kind of on my to-do list. But now being back into the mastermind thing, so my goal for next week is to go through those notes, properly write them up, and then work out,
Nice.
basically take a decision on what's next. Um, yeah, so yeah, that is all good. So there's the only other thing with that
Nice.
is that I have this kind of tangential idea that isn't really my idea.
Okay.
Which I think I chatted a little bit to you about, but this kind of idea of bringing in like a geocaching element to it. So
Yes, we did talk
uh,
about this.
yeah, so Kiri was mentioning it to me. Kiri, one of the 7 and 7 co-founders, was mentioning that this was an idea that you'd had, and Jed, someone else, had also mentioned this similar kind of thing. And so I kind of really like this idea. I feel like Jed in particular feels like it is his idea that he wants to build, which I
Right.
totally respect. But that kind of leaves me in an interesting position. And so I don't know. I need to muse further on what to do
Yeah.
to go
But keep in mind too, like, Jed isn't an app developer. And so like you could totally like if you wanted to build something, like I'm sure he would collaborate with you on it.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And so I just have to decide how I feel about that, basically. Not
Totally.
against Jed because Jed's awesome, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of used to calling the shots on that
Totally.
stuff, and so
You don't have to explain that one to me.
yeah. So I don't know. And there's some appeal in that in working with someone else on something that is his idea and everything, but then there's also I don't know. Yeah, I need to think about
Yeah.
it. Um,
Regardless of what it is, if you created anything in any capacity that kind of like utilizes geocaching, I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, well, that's it. And I do like the idea of combining that with a nomad kind of a thing. Like it kind of
Agree.
particularly appeals to people who are traveling all the time and can leave behind things for other people who will likely be later there. Like it feels like it
Well,
particularly
yeah.
works
Well,
as
like,
an idea.
say, for example, I'm about to go to London, and say we're using Lewis's Nomad Geocache Present app, and you come to London maybe a week after I left, and you get a little notification in your app. Hey, Nick dropped a geocache somewhere in Shoreditch. And you're like, oh, well, that's cool. But like, you know, if you saw on Facebook, maybe I've checked into like 3 different cafes or something like that, and you went near one of those cafes and you got your geocache, like that would be super awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's something that we have to do, or not have to. Maybe it's something that we Kickstarter as an
Mm,
idea of like a way to get money up front for it. And then, I mean, maybe because this is partly your idea as well, right? So maybe we can, something to think about is maybe like a kind of picturing, daydreaming ideas as if we did a Kickstarter and then we could
right.
get a bunch of cash to work on it together, assuming it went well. And
That
then
would be
be
super
involved.
cool.
So that does sound amazing, but obviously we can't just pull out some tens or multiple thousands of pounds from Kickstarter from just like from nothing. But maybe that's where Jed comes in.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, we can be like Jed, and you know, we can get Beck involved and be like, okay, look, we're gonna build this thing. We need people to give us $100,000. That would be
yeah,
great.
yeah. You give us the money, and then we'll take it from there. Yeah,
Yeah, we will handle. And
that's how
darn,
this
to
stuff
to
works, right?
to to test this app, we'll have to travel around and
Yeah,
explore, and it sounds awful and impossible.
yeah. So. I think we have to think about that one and what we do with it because I do love the idea, and everybody I mentioned it to loves the idea.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
um,
and I think like Kiri might have briefly mentioned, like we've been batting around some version of this idea in the universe since honestly since I first met her, maybe. So
right.
it's definitely like I have. That's definitely one of those things where, much like an iPhone game, I would love to be involved with something related to nomad-based geocaching.
Mm, okay. Well, maybe that's something, yeah, that we keep, that we keep thinking about.
Yeah,
So I tell you what, then. So
nice.
let's say that this is separated from my app. I got to stay focused on
Yes,
that because that is much more doable in the
yes,
short term as well. So I write
absolutely.
up all my notes and everything, get together a
Perfect.
list of stories, and come back with what's going to be the task for the week after.
Great. And what's great about that is I was there at that meeting. So if you needed any blanks filled in or if you needed follow up on any of the ideas, I should hopefully be able to also remember what was said.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. I hope your memory is better than mine, but I did take notes, so I'm hoping that it will all come back to me. So
Perfect.
um, yeah, yeah, that's the plan.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, so
Seems pretty solid.
I think that wraps us up for this week. Uh,
Excellent.
yeah, so I'll see you this time next week.
Perfect. See you on the internet.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, then please give us a like or a subscribe below and let us know what you think in the comments. And we'll see you next week.